And we are on.
Are we? Okay. Well, hi, everybody. It's been a while since I've been on, and we're back again on Quilting 101. And today I'm just going to go through some, I guess I would call them trickier techniques on finishing your quilt top, your borders, your binding, putting piping under your binding. I know Joni showed the very, very tiny piping the other night with the piping hot binding ruler, and I'm going to show that again today. I use a little bit of a heavier cording when I do mine. So everybody's saying hello. Hello, everyone. But I want to start out again with what I did on my very last show, how to perfectly measure your border. And I talked about it on the last show. If this is your quilt top right here, let me get to the center of the table so Kate can get me. If this is your quilt top right here, okay, and this is your border fabric, the very last thing that you want to do is lay this down here, sew it on, and then trim it to cut the edge of your quilt. I've never made a quilt yet in my life that the borders, the outside edges, top and bottom, side to side, aren't slightly longer than the body of the quilt. It's just the nature of the beast. And I think a lot of it has to do with when you're picking it up and you're going to the ironing board, and then you're picking it up and you're going back to the cutting table. Then you pick it up and you go over to the sewing machine. Recently, what I try to do is I scoop my quilts up in my arms instead of grabbing them by the edges to transfer them from place to place. And that does seem to have helped me. What happens if you have your border on the outside of the quilt and it's longer than the center of the quilt? The outside of your borders just wave like crazy, or across the top and bottom. And if you ever go to a quilt show, you'll see quilts hanging that are wavy on the edges, and that's why this happens. Also, if you send your quilts to a long arm quilter and you send with long wavy borders, they're not going to want to do your quilts anymore because it's a lot of work to try to get that border to get in the way it's supposed to be. Okay? They'll tell you, "Oh, I'm very busy right now. I have a lot of quilts to do." So, what you do is you take your border, and it's longer than your quilt, obviously, and you lay it right across the center of your quilt, or close to the center. Okay? Then what I do is I take a nice sharp pair of shears. I call them my KKB, my Karen K. Buckley shears. They're nice and sharp. And what you do is you're going to fold this edge back so that it is exactly right at the edge of the quilt when you're in the center of the quilt. Okay? And I learned this technique from Mary Beth Hartnett and Kathy Hudak. They're both ladies, local people. And I cut a little nip like that. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it if I hold it up against my shirt? Yes, see that little nip I cut? Now that little nip is going to be right at the raw edge of my quilt. Then I'm going to come up here, making sure that everything stays together. I'm going to fold this guy back. I want him to be right at the edge. And I cut a little nip. Just like that. You see the little nip? Maybe you see it better on here. There we go. Okay. Then I slide it to the edge of the quilt. Now, if I'm going to be mitering my borders later, I want the excess hanging off the quilt to be wider than the width of the border that's going to go on up here. We'll show you that in a minute. Okay. Then I pin it. And sometimes your quilt is much longer than this border piece. When I say much, like a ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch on a big quilt, not on a quilt this little. So what I do is I get my husband to come down and I pin this end so that my little nip that I made lines up with the raw fabric, raw edge of the quilt top. Then I come down here and I make sure that this guy lines up with the raw edge of my quilt top. And I pin him. Then I get my husband to stand over across my cutting table, and he pulls on one end and I pull on the other until we get this border stretched out that it's the same size as the edge of the quilt. And then as we're pulling, I am pinning. Now once I pin that one, then he'll move his hand down to here and we'll pull again. And I'll put a pin in here. He'll move his hand down to here and I'll pin again. If you don't have anybody at home with you, and my husband has been working out of town lately, I'll get something very, very heavy and I'll put it here and pretend like it's my husband. I'll get a pile of books or something that I can pull against and I can pin, okay? Then when you go to the sewing machine, because this, the underneath side is now actually longer than the top, even though you've pinned it and pulled it, you want to sew. I'm going to go over and sew, and you want to sew with your long side on the bottom. And in our case, it would be the yellow, okay? And I'm just going to sew long side to the yellow. But let me start. Before I sew, I'm going to mark down 1/4 inch because the next thing I want to do is show you how to do a mitered border. So if you're going to do a mitered border, you do exactly what I just showed you, leaving enough up here so that this is longer than the width of the next border that we're going to put on, okay? And leaving enough on the bottom so it's longer than the width of the border that we're going to put on. So now I'm going to come over here, and I have my little Gloria horn ruler. I don't know if Gloria still sells these or not.
We have them in the system, so
okay.
I hope we do.
They're really cute. They're our little Gloria horn. They're very handy. They're nice and small. They fit in your hand. So they're very handy for stuff like this. So I'm going to pull this pin out. And I want to make this at 1/4 inch. And I have my ruler slightly off the edge at 1/4 inch because I have to allow for the width of my friction pin here. And is it not wanting to dry? There it goes. Okay, then I'm going to go here. And I'm going to be just slightly less than 1/4 inch. What am I doing here? I'm on the wrong side of the ruler, folks. Slightly less than 1/4 inch because I want to allow for the tip of the pen. And I'm going to do this. Oh, I did 1/8 of an inch instead of 1/4 of an inch. This is where I want to start and stop sewing because I'm going to show you how to do a mitered border. Okay? And of course we do the same thing on the other end, but I think if we do one corner, that's good. When I'm quilting, I like to have my stitch length at 2.0. I forgot how quickly the chairs slide here in this studio because the floor is a little bit sloped. Okay, now I want to start inside that X. So I want to start my needle. I kind of have to look where I'm going. Okay, I think I'm where I want to be, right there. I'm going to come ahead, and you'll see that my fabric's right at the 1/4 inch on the edge of the 1/4 inch foot. So I'm going to come ahead, 1, 2. I'm going to go back and take 2 stitches. 1, 2. Oh, oh. Joni has something set on here that I don't like. We're going to have to start this over again. Let's see what Joni has here. She has this set. All right, I didn't want that on. Seam ripper. I need a seam ripper. Let me see. Let me see. Sorry about that. There it is. Thank you. It only take me a second to tear this out. I'm used to just going back 2 stitches, but she has it set so it really locks. That's because she's a garment girl, not a quilter. Okay. Let's try this again.
Okay.
Again, I'm going to set my needle. I hope right in the center of my X. Okay. I'm going to come forward 2 stitches. And I'm going to go back 2. All right. It kind of surprised me when it kept going. Okay. Then, since your quilt top is slightly longer than your border, by sewing with it on the bottom, it will ease it in. And again, sometimes you've got to tug from pin to pin, a little bit like this. I know I never condone pulling when you're sewing, but sometimes you have to when you're doing this, just to get it to work. Okay, I'm just going to stop right here. And you'll see that I started at my X. I took back a couple stitches, okay? And then, I came forward 2 stitches, I went back 2 stitches. Okay, so now, whenever we sew this border on top, it's going to be sewn the same way I sewed this one. I would have measured across the center. Let's do that. Let's measure across the center and get it right. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to press this border over. I didn't have any quilt tops at home that were done to this point that I could actually demo on a real quilt top. I have about 8 done that all have to be quilted, so I have to get that done. Okay, so now you're going to imagine that I have a border sewn on this side and a border sewn on this side. So then what we would do, we'd do the same thing we did on this side. We'd go across the center of the quilt. And we would make our little nip. It has to be longer than the width of this border, remember, because I'm going to be mitering. So I want this to come out here. And I'm going to make my little nip right here. So remember, you have to have your side borders on before you measure for the top and bottom. Don't measure all 4 borders until you have, don't measure your top and bottom borders till you have the side ones on, or vice versa, wherever you start. Okay, so now I have my little nip. Okay, and I should have nipped on this side. Because of the way I have to lay it down. Okay, so I'm just going to nip here. Okay. That way I have the right side going down on the right side of my quilt. So, this little nip goes here. When you're sewing it on to the outside edge. Okay? I'm going to stick a pin in there. But when we start to sew, we're not going to sew across here. We're going to start sewing here at that 1/4 inch because we're going to be mitering a border now. Okay? So we're going to start at that little 1/4 inch mark. And if I go from the wrong side, I probably should have put a colored thread in there, Kate. But if I come from the wrong side, whoops, lay it down. Okay, so I have it pinned with my nip out where it belongs. Now I'm going to bring this up so it lines up. Can you see how this border fabric now is lining up with the front of the quilt? And I'm going to drop my needle. This is the trickiest part, trying to see where you're putting your let's see. Okay. What are you laughing at?
Judy said don't knock over the camera because we've had too many fatalities lately with the camera.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Was that Miss Bellin? Said that?
Fame.
Oh. I thought it was Judy Bellin. Okay, so now. Whoops. I may not be perfectly accurate, but you get the idea. Okay. Now I go all the way across, and of course I would have already had my border on the other side of the quilt, so then I'd have stopped on this side at the 1/4 inch. So I would be ready to miter all my corners. Okay? Now I take my pin out and see how they both started and stopped right there. Okay? So now this is the way I miter. We also have a border mitering tool that works pretty slick too, but this is the way I do it. So you're going to fold your quilt at the corner. Let me press this first. I'm going to press this over first. Okay. Now I'm going to fold this way at the corner so that these seams are lining up. See how these seams are lining up? The side seam is lining right up with the top seam. And you have to play with it a minute. Okay. These are going to get laid out like this. These should line up perfectly here. The raw edges of my border should line up. Okay. And I can feel that this seam is lining up with my seam underneath from my side border. Okay. All right. And again, this would be stitched. Both of them would be stitched all the way down to the other corners. They'd all be sewn to this point and ready to go. Okay? That feels perfect. I'm going to use a little ruler right now because this is a narrow border. If I was going to use a really wide, where's my other ruler? If I was going to be using a very, very wide border, I would use a wider ruler because it would be more accurate. Okay? I'm going to use this one since we only have a little narrow guy here. And I'm going to lay the 45-degree line on my seam line. Right here. And I'm going to come out right here where I started and stopped. Where I backed up. Okay? So now I have my 45-degree line here, right on my seam. And it's right at the fold. And it's also right at where I started and stopped stitching right here. Okay. Then I can draw a line. Don't get too anxious and cut on this line, whatever you do. This is going to be your stitching line. Okay. Now I'm going to stick a pin in that so it doesn't move as I'm on my way back to the sewing machine. I'm going to start to stitch right here where I did my backing up and going forward. And then I'm going to stitch out to the edge. Okay. So I will start to stitch right here. This clear foot makes it a little easier to see where you're going. Okay. And then once I put the foot down, then I can see that I am where I want to be. 1, 2. I'm going to back up 2. 1, 2. Don't go 3, because then you have to pick that stitch out. Move my pin. Okay. Then I like to go over to the ironing board, I should say. See, there's your corner. Okay. I want to lay it out and make sure that it's laying right before I go and trim it down to a 1/4 inch. And I'm pressing my seams towards my borders. It'll lay flatter in the corner that way. Okay, and there you go. Then when you're happy with how that's laying, and I think I am, and you want to check and make sure that this is nice and square, and I would use a bigger square ruler to check that out. But I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, and then I can just trim this with either scissors, or I can lay it down and use the rotary cutter, but it's a little safer with the scissors, I think. And then there's your first mitered corner. Okay. All right. Okay, now let's get into some binding. Now I know that Gloria likes the wraparound binding with using the binding foot, and I do too. I like it for baby quilts because they get laundered a lot, and I like it for placemats, table runners, anything that's going to get laundered a lot, because when you put your binding on by hand on the back like I do for my show quilts, it's not as serviceable as when it's stitched by the machine. Okay, but the way I do my show quilts, I'm going to show you right now how I do my binding. Okay, I bought this pre-quilted fabric because I didn't have a quilted quilt top to bring to show you. Okay, this is the size binding I like to use. I like to use a 2.5 inch strip. Okay, so now we're going to press that. I probably should have done this at home. Didn't think of it.
How do you know what size binding you need for each quilt?
I like a 2.5 inch binding because you put it on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and that gives you plenty to wrap around on the back. There are lots of quilters that do a 2¼ inch. But to me, that's a little bit too much of a struggle when you're wrapping it around on the back. I don't cut it on the bias either unless I'm going around a curve. I always do it on the cross grain of the fabric. If you're going around a curve, your binding has to be cut on the bias, or it won't cooperate. Okay. I'm going to grab I'm going to grab my little ruler because the one that we're going to show today isn't out of the package yet. But that's okay. Oh, and if you want to make you have to make your binding longer, obviously, because when you make a quilt, you're always needing many, 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 many pieces of binding. So this is how I sew my 2 bindings together, my 2 strips. I lay it like this. And if you have a laser on your machine, you can turn the laser on to go across at an angle. Let's see if we can get the laser to come on here.
Does cross grain mean from selvage to selvage?
Yes, that's cross grain. Lengthwise grain runs parallel with the selvage. Okay, let's see if we can get that. Okay. So I just set it, I start right here where it makes a V. That's where I start to sew. And then I just follow my beam down. And I keep the beam at the other V. Just like that. Then you would trim it. Excuse me. Can they hear me? I guess they can hear me. Then you would trim it. Again, you could use the ruler and a rotary cutter for this. But my scissors are very handy right here. Then I would go over to my ironing board. Give it a little press flat to set your stitch. And then I press it to one side. I don't press the seams open on my binding. Some people do. I do not. And then I'll show you at the end how I put them back together again when I get to the end of the quilt. Okay, so we will take this guy and I'm going to press this guy over so that I can show you at the end. And actually the technique that I use to sew my bindings together at the end are in the book that I'm going to show you today, the Piping Hot Binding book, when we do the piping. Okay. You know what? I didn't bring fabric for my piping. I'll use the yellow, I guess. I wanted to bring a stripe and I completely forgot. And do you know why you sew your bindings together like this at an angle? You don't sew them together this way, because when you iron them, the seams would be on top of each other. But if you sew them at an angle like this, then when you iron them like this, you don't get your seams on top of each other where you're attaching it to the quilt. So that's why you always do it that way. Even though it's straight of grain and not bias, you still sew it at an angle. Okay? All right. Let me finish pressing this. We have plenty of time.
Carol said she also doesn't iron open her seams.
No, I don't. A lot of people do, but I do not. I don't find it to be too bulky when you press them to one side. There are all kind of little tools too. I know Gloria has one here that helps you to pre-press this. You run it through the little tool. I don't have that one at home, and it helps to crease it, and then you iron it. Makes it a little faster, especially when you're putting 10 of these strips or something together. We're just doing a little bit today. Okay. All right, now first of all, I'm going to show you how to just attach binding to the front and how to properly turn a corner. At least I think, to make it nice and square. Okay, I want my little 45-degree. Okay. I keep hitting the embroidery unit. Okay. I'm going to need my pen too. Okay. I can turn my laser off. Close. Nope. How do I get it to turn off? What have I done wrong here? Close. There we go. Okay. Now when I put my binding on, I don't always leave it at a 2.0, only because it kind of takes a long time. Excuse me, but I do sew it at a 1/4 inch. So I'll put my 1/4 inch foot here on the edge. And if you feel like you're bubbling when you're sewing, you could always use your digital dual feed to do this too, and use the 1/4 inch sole plate on it. I've done that already too, especially if my quilt is very thick. I'm going to go up to a 2.5 stitch length. I'm going to take a couple stitches. I'm going to back up a few. And then I'm going to come down here. And when I get close to the edge, I'm going to take a 45-degree ruler. There's another one we have on the table I'm going to show you, but it's still on the plastic, so I'm going to use this little one. And I'm going to place this 45-degree ruler on the raw edge of my quilt, like that, so that it comes right at the corner. I'm going to take my friction pen. Let me move it over a little bit. Take my friction pen and I'm going to mark this. Okay. I want to stitch up to that line. And again, this is the tricky part, trying to make sure you get right up to the line. One more stitch, okay? Then I'm going to back up. I'm going to cut my thread. Okay. Now you'll see I went right to the line. Do you see that? Now at home, my cabinet has an insert. So I use the edge of that insert as my straight line. So I'm going to have to come up to the table and do this. Okay, because I want to use a line on my cutting mat. Poor Kate, I'm chasing her all over the room. Okay. So what I want to do, I want the bottom of my quilt, or the edge of my quilt. I don't know if I'm on the bottom or the top. I want it to follow right along this line on the mat. And you're going to bring this guy out. make sure that he comes down to the edge. And you want that to follow right along that same line on the mat. Okay? And the longer the better, the more accurate you will be. Okay? Okay? Then what I do is fold it back like this. Keeping this straight, don't let it move. Just like that. So now this fold is right here, even with this edge, and this is right here. Now, looking for my pin right here. I'm going to stick a pin in it because I have to walk back to the sewing machine. I don't want anything to move on me. I'm going to pinch this. Normally I would just stay at the machine. And at this point you can feel that fold that I just made under there at that 45 degree. Or if you don't trust yourself feeling the fold, you can take this pin and you can do what you just did before. You can mark your 45 degrees here. Okay. And keeping this at a 1/4 inch, the edge of your foot. Okay. I'm going to go forward a couple stitches and back. Okay. Then you would just continue down until you've done pivoted and done all 4 corners. One thing I forgot to tell you, I'm going to show you now. When you seam your binding, like I showed you, you seamed your binding. What I do is I lay my quilt out on the floor if I have to, or across I have a really large cutting table. And you say, okay, I think I'm going to start my binding right here. All right, okay, perfect. I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to bend this around the corner because I'm just trying to make sure I don't get a seam in the corner. Then I come down here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to bend him. And here's the seam that I made. And it's in the center. It's not at the corner. You don't want it at the corner because boy, that's a headache. And if you're doing this and you're going round and round and all of a sudden, uh-oh, here it is. It's right at my corner. What you want to do is either back up and bring your binding back, or you want to take it past the corner over to here and then start over again, deciding how you want your binding to start. But you want to audition it first like this. You don't want to be at the sewing machine and find out that this thing is right at the corner of your quilt where you have to turn your corner. Okay. Okay, now I started here, started there. And then you'll turn your binding to the back. And usually what you do is, you'll see on the front my little pleat in my binding. This side is folded over that side. Do you see that? So on the back side, usually what you want to do is you want to make it opposite. You want this side to fold over that side. See how they line up there? And it makes your corner nice and square. Because one of the first things in a quilt show the quilt judges look at is the binding. And they always want to make sure the corners are square. Okay. I put a small clip in the top left corner. For why, Carrie? I'm not following. To make the original 45-degree line. Can you show again on the cutting mat how you used the ruler to make the original 45-degree line. Oh, you mean what, on the binding? Is that what she's talking about?
So.
Yeah. I will. I certainly will. Okay.
And Amanda was asking what foot you're using on the machine.
I'm just using a clear 1/4-inch foot right now. Okay, so, see, I can't work backwards. Let me see, I always work from this side. Okay, so, I'm going to sew down to here. All right, I have to sew it down first, then I'll show you. Put the lid on. Okay. All right, I did that corner. Now we're going to come down and do this corner. We also have the metal 1/4-inch foot that has a guide on it. It's like a piece of black spring steel, and you run it along the edge. I prefer the clear myself, but my granddaughter Lizzie, who quilts with me and who also works here at Gloria, she likes the one with the guide on it. So it just depends on what you're used to. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to have to take it out of the machine. So I can come over here to the cutting table and show you. Okay. Take your 45-degree ruler. We have one here that's still in the plastic. We could put that one there too and use it. Okay. Line the bottom of the ruler up with the edge of your quilt. Go in a little bit, and then I'm going to draw this line like that. Now I'm going to stitch down, and I'm going to stop at that line. Okay. And I have that line drawn straight out to the corner. All right, now I'm going to back up, just so it doesn't pull out later. This is about the only time I ever use reversing quilting. And you'll see how I went right down to the line. Can you see that? Okay. Then I'm just going to use this straight line on the machine right now so we don't have to keep jumping up and down. I'm looking at this line right here on the bed of my machine. Okay. So I'm going to line this up with the line on the bed of my machine. Probably not as accurate as if I went to the cutting mat. But, okay. Fold this back so that this fold is even here with the edge. And then I can feel where the other fold is underneath. Line this up, my 1/4-inch. And I'm going to have to do it by hand like this. Okay, I'm right at that fold underneath. I can feel it. And I come forward, 1, 2, go back 1, 2, and then continue down. Now I'm going to show you how I join bindings. Okay, and there's your corner. Okay. Now I would play with this till I had it nice and square, you know. But you get the idea. Then I fold it to the back and you stitch it down by hand. That's how I do it. Okay. All right. All right. Now I'm going to pretend that I'm to the end. I'll turn this last corner. And I'm just going to pretend like I've just turned this corner, which I really haven't. But I'm going to stitch as though I had turned around the corner and now I have to join these two. Okay? Well, it helps if you don't put your foot on your binding when it's on the floor. Okay, so I'm just going to start here, pretend like I've turned the corner, and I'm going to come up, I'm going to come forward. I'm going to leave a small opening. And again, I'm going to back up. Now, if you're on a bigger quilt, you'd be leaving a much bigger opening. You'd be leaving like a foot or so you have room to work here. Okay. Now, in the Piping Hot Binding book that we're going to talk about later, I'm going to cut this off because we don't need it. It tells you to, I think they call it the kiss and twist method. And what you're going to do is you're going to fold this back. I hope I left myself enough room. I may not have, but we'll see. And then you're going to fold this guy back. Looks like one of my bindings is wider than the other. I do not know why. Maybe I used a piece of border fabric here for binding. That might be what I did. Okay. So you're going to put this, and when you're going to fold them so that they're meeting each other, but not really. I always leave a little airspace there. Because if I don't, yeah, I must have used a piece of border for binding. Oh well. If I don't, then I end up with too much binding here and it bubbles up. Okay. Now this is 1¼ inch wide because it was 2½ total. So you measure back that 1¼ inch plus 1/8. So you're actually measuring back 1 3/8 inches. There's my 1 inch, 2, 1/4, 3/8. Okay. And this, we have to pretend like I cut this correctly, and it wasn't. 1 3/8. Okay. I'm going to cut this off at the 1 3/8. And be careful you don't cut through both layers. Because believe me, I've done that already by doing this and not lifting it up. Okay. So this is the kiss right here. If you were going to sew these together right now, you'd just sew them just like that. Just sew it together. But no, we're going to twist. Okay. And when you twist, you let about 1/8 inch stick out here and 1/8 inch stick out here. That's why you do 1¼ inch plus the 1/8. Okay. And this is going to be tough to sew because I didn't leave a lot of room. But you'll get the idea. Okay. Hope I can make this work. I made it a little short. So you're going to sew across this just like you did when you pieced your binding together. You're going to sew across at an angle. I don't think I'm going to get this to go. Let me see. There, maybe I got it now. They'll get the idea. Now I can't think. Now I can't think. Where am I here? Let me get back here again. Sorry about that. Now I bumped the embroidery in it. Malfunction occurred. This is turning into a... There we go. I bumped the embroidery in it with my chair. I'm going to do this on this side so I gave you more room. All right. Joining the binding ends, yes, that's what I'm going to show you. But I didn't leave myself enough room. And I obviously took a piece of the border fabric and tried to make binding out of it. Okay, so I'm going to cut this off. I'm going to sew this a little ways down. You don't need to come over, because all I'm going to do is put 2 more pieces of binding on. Turn the machine back on. At home when I'm sewing, I don't leave my embroidery unit on usually, unless it's just a very small project.
Pat Dunn was asking, do you bind back to front?
Do I bind back to front?
Mm-hmm.
No, I bind front to back, but I'm going to show how you can bind back to front and use Joni's binding foot. If you don't have enough backing to do wraparound binding. It'll be just like doing the wraparound binding, but it'll be with binding instead of the backing. Okay. All right. All right, now we're going to put this binding on here. We're going to use the right binding this time. I picked up the wrong piece of fabric, obviously. I should have done them in 2 separate colors, and then that wouldn't have happened. Okay. So we'll just pretend that I've turned the corner. All right. And now I'm going to back up. And now this is my binding that I started with. You know what I mean? I started here and I went all the way around, and now I just ended here. You just have to have a good imagination, that's all. Okay. Make sure I left myself enough room this time. Okay. Now we're imagining that the binding is all the way around here. And now we have to get to the end to join our ends. Okay. So I come here. I think I left myself enough room this time. I hope so. I come here and I bend this back to there. Then I'm going to bend this guy back. Like I said, I always leave a little air gap to make sure it'll fit and the binding won't be too long. Okay. When my binding is folded in half, it's 1.25 inches. Okay. So you add 1/8. You do 1 inch and 3/8. And here I'm going to do 1 inch and 3/8. And then I'm going to cut that off. Okay. Then the pieces kiss and twist. I'm still going to be tight. I'm going to pick some of those stitches out. See, it's important to leave yourself enough room. I didn't leave enough room. Today is not a good demo day.
Do you add 1/8 of an inch even if your binding is wider?
Yes, whatever width your binding is, you fold it. When you fold it in half, whatever it ends up, if it ends up 1.25 inches, then you make it 1 inch and 3/8. If it ends up 2 inches, you make it 2 1/8. 2 inches would be pretty wide, but. All right, let's do this again. Okay, so now, then we twist it. We're going to sew it. See how this is twisted like this? So your folded edges are together. Like here, the folded edge here matches up with the folded edge there. Now when I sew, I'm going to sew just like I did when I put my binding together. I'm going to sew from that little X right there, where those two meet. I'm going to sew down to that little mark right there. Okay? I don't want to bump that again. Make sure you leave yourself enough room. You'll see twice now I didn't. Like I said, if you're on a big quilt, you're going to want about 1 foot of space between the beginning and the end of your binding. I'm just going to take a couple stitches till I get this laid out the way I want it. Like that. I think that's pretty good. All right. There we go. Now we got it. So now you're going to have that slanted seam again, just like you did when you joined your binding edges at the beginning. Cut those little 1/8 of an inch off. And there, now it's all ready to be stitched down. Did that make sense? I'm sorry I mixed everybody up. Just make sure you leave enough room here from when you end this piece and begin this piece that you have room to maneuver in there. And I didn't do that. Okay, then this will just get stitched down. Then I turn it to the back and I stitch it on by hand. Okay. Now, if you want to use Joni's binding foot, okay, and you don't want to do any hand sewing on your binding, what you can do is you can apply your binding to the back of the quilt. Okay, we'll start here so we can turn a corner. Okay, so now I'm on the back of the quilt. Good Lord, I have a hard time with this chair. This floor, not the chair. Okay. And I have to have enough to show my piping. Okay. Just going to start here. Again, I will use my quarter. Okay. Mark this so that I get a nice square corner. Okay. Okay. I'm going to pull this out because I'm too lazy to get back up to the table. Fold it over. I don't want to lose my thread here. I'm going to start again at the, oh, I have to turn it.
Everyone's complimenting your nails.
Oh, thank you. Okay. And then I'll come down this side. Now remember, I'm sewing this on the back of the quilt. This is the back of the quilt. Now lots of times what I do at home when I'm turning a binding, I will actually press it to make sure it turns nice and crisp, like that. A lot of people hate to put an iron on their quilt, but I will do that. Okay. And again, we're on the back. So now we'll bring it around to the front. And you can pin, you can just keep fiddling around with your fingers till you get it where you want it. you could use the clips. I think we have clips here. Okay. So I think I'll clip. And when you roll your binding over, you want it to be full. So you want your quilt to fill up the binding when you roll it over. You don't want it like this, so that then you have this skinny flat edge here. That's another thing the quilt judges look for. They feel your binding to make sure it's full. Now when you do this technique, just like when you do wraparound binding, you're going to see a line of stitching on the back of your quilt. There's no way to avoid that. Unless your binding was cut so perfectly that it would kind of hide. Okay, now I want my quilt binding foot. Okay. I'm just going to turn one corner so you can see how we do it. And the feet just snap off and on. The baby lock feet are so reasonably priced compared to other machines. Okay, that's mine. Oh, I didn't show you the foot. This binding foot, it has a little ledge on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that or not. There's a little ledge right here. My fingernail is like snapping off of it right there. Okay. That little ledge is going to ride on the fold of this binding. When I say the fold of the binding, I mean right here. So when you put your foot down, there's a little, you can't see it very well, but I can see it. Right here on the foot is a little piece of metal that sticks up. You can feel it. And that's what you're going to eyeball on the fold on your quilt. That way you know that your ledge is running right along in the binding, right where you want it. Okay? I'm going to move my needle to the left a little bit. I'm going the wrong way, because I want to be close to the edge of the binding when I'm sewing. Okay? I'm going to run my needle down to make sure that it's where I think it is. I'm going to go back a little bit. I can't tell. I'm going to go back a little more. Okay. And then I'm going to sew. I probably would go to a top stitch. I'd probably go to a 3.0. Keeping this little notch. I'm going to call it a notch, although it's not a notch. It sticks up. It's not scooped out like a notch. But I'm keeping that notch right at the fold of my binding. Take my clip out or off. And of course, I would probably be using thread that matched my binding, to be honest with you. And then get in the habit of watching your foot. Don't watch your needle sew. Your needle sews whether you look at it or not. You always want to be eyeballing something you can line up with your foot to keep your stitching straight. Now when I get into here, I want to catch my fold. I can't tell if I caught it or not. It looks like I did. So now I'm going to pivot. And come down here, and Kate will tell you that that little notch is lined right up on the fold.
Mm-hmm.
So evidently I pivoted pretty well. And when you're doing this at home, and you're doing this on a project you've worked hundreds of hours on, you're going to take a lot more time and be a lot more careful than I am being right now. But see how we cut the fold and was able to turn the corner, how nice and square that corner is. But on the back, you will see a line of stitching. But if that stitching in your bobbin, if that thread in your bobbin matches the back of your quilt, you'll never know it. Okay? So that's how you can use a wraparound binding in Joni's foot. Even if your backing isn't big enough to wrap around, you just put the binding on the back and bring it to the front. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Yeah, I love that binding foot too. Okay, so now we're going to show you how to put some piping under your binding. And I am going to use this last little piece that I have here. I'm going to cut some of this yellow off to make my piping. And I have the original piping hot binding foot. We're going to piping hot binding ruler. We're going to show you the ruler's the same, but the book is different. She gives you a lot more instruction now. So, if you're going to use narrower binding, you're going to cut it at 2.5 inches wide, which is what I do. And your piping is going to be cut at 1 1/4 wide. Okay? Where is my... I don't know where the inside of this went for my binding foot, but anyway. Oh, here it is. Okay. All right. So we're going to cut our fabric for our piping 1 1/4 wide. Let me get some of this out of the way. Okay. Get this out of here so we don't hit it with a rotary cutter. Hopefully we don't need the seam ripper again. Okay. I like a 28mm rotary cutter. I know around here all they ever use is the 45, but I find the 28 easier to use. I only use the 45 if I'm doing multiple layers. Okay. So I'm going to cut this 1 1/4. Okay. Now, the cording that comes with the piping hot binding ruler and book is this one. And it is, what did we say this was? 1.8mm or something, wasn't it, Kate?
Yes.
I personally like a thicker piping because I'm going to run out and grab my quilt. If I'm going to go to all the trouble of doing this, I want to be able to see it. Let me grab it.
Judith and Marie, we only have the book with the tool to sell, unfortunately.
If you need help, let us know.
Oh, I'm good. Okay. My home right now is completely torn up. All of my floors are being sanded and stained, and so I had a terrible time trying to find some of these to bring in. But this was the Santa quilt that I made years ago, and then I taught it a few years ago here at Gloria's store. And you'll see the piping I used. It's called a 3/32. Because when I'm going to go to all that work, I want to be able to see it. Now the piping that Joni showed this, I guess Thursday night, didn't she?
Yeah.
And this is adorable, like inside a little girl's, like the edge of a little girl's collar or on clothing. Because on a collar, you probably wouldn't want anything that big. But I like the thicker. Okay. And this was done with the 1.25 like I just cut. Okay. Now, where am I going to put this? I'll put it over here. Now the other quilt that I brought, I did double piping. And I cut one of them at the 1.25 and the other one I cut at the wider so that I could stack them. So that I could stack them behind the binding. I have a yellow and I have a red. And I have a really funny story about this. When I entered this quilt in the Three Rivers Quilt Show, the quilt judge said she didn't think that my piping laid very well. And I might have to agree with her. Maybe I didn't get it done as tight as I should have. But then I entered it in the Beaver Quilt Show months later, and it was the same judge. And she said, beautiful pipe finish. After at the first quilt show, she said it didn't lay very well. So there you go. Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is, I have to find my piping foot. Okay.
Is there a rule to use when determining the sizes of borders used on the same quilt?
Sizes of borders used on the same quilt. Usually, I have heard that your border should be a multiple of what your blocks are. So if you have a 12-inch block, you could use a 6-inch border, a 3-inch border, a 4-inch border. If you have a 9-inch block, you'd probably use 3-inch borders or 4.5-inch borders. It would be a multiple of the size of the block is what I was always told. I don't know that there's any real rule. But if you have a quilt with little tiny blocks, you don't want an 8-inch border going all the way around it either. I mean, you want it to kind of go together. Okay? So, another thing she tells you in her book, oh, I've made such a mess here, is you want to shrink your piping first. Okay? Now she goes into this big long explanation of taking pins and sticking them in your ironing board and then winding this all around your pins like this. Wind it, wind it, wind it, wind it. Then you pull the pins out and then you shrink it. I see no need for that. I just put it like that on my ironing board. And I think there's water in here. Then I just steam the daylights out of it. Because that's all she tells you to do. So I don't see any point in having to do all that winding around. The only thing is, if you wind it around like she says, you can actually really see it shrink. When it shrinks up, you can watch it go. Okay? All right, so now we shrunk it. Now, the next thing I do is you tie a knot in one end. And with the thinner piping, like this, I see there's a big knot tied in here. You want a big knot tied on the end, and I'm going to show you why in a minute. Because now when you put this in here, and you're wrapping it so that you can stitch it, you don't want to accidentally get to the end and accidentally pull your cord out after you've already stitched this line of stitching, because that can happen. Okay? All right, I'm going to put my cording foot on. My piping foot, I should say. Oh, where am I going to put this now? It's very heavy. Just throw it up on top of the other one. It's very heavy. Okay, so I have my piping foot in my hand. Whoop, whoop. Now I've got clips everywhere. I'm a messy sewer today. Okay. I'm going to put my piping foot on. There we go. Now I want to wrap my piping fabric around my cording. And I want to keep the edges together. I'm just going to get it under the foot and then I'm going to play with it. I'll let the foot hold it for me. There's a groove on the foot. And you'll see that that cording wants to ride right in that groove. That's the idea. There we go. Now I have it.
Are there different sizes of piping feet?
There's a mini piping foot, yes, for the very, very tiny cording that Joni showed on Thursday night. Then I'm going to take a few stitches. Okay, then I can play with it. Now it's just going to ride right on that cord. Whoops. I need to get it over a little bit. Come on now. I believe in her first book, I haven't read the second book yet, but in the first book she kept encouraging you to use a zipper foot for this. And I just couldn't understand why, when you have feet that are designed to perfectly sew with the cording. So I never did use the zipper foot. But if you had a zipper foot, I guess you could use it if you don't have a cording foot or piping foot. And again, I'm in a bit of a hurry today. I'm probably not taking the time I normally do. But you'll see it. See how that cording is inside the fabric, okay? Now, the beauty of this ruler, of her ruler, is now when you cut this fabric, it's the perfect width to, what did I do with my 1/4 inch foot? I had it here. Here it is. I want to put that in the bag or I'll go home without it. It's the perfect width to put right under your binding. This has grooves in the back. It's called the groove and piping tool. I'm making the narrow binding, so I'm going to use the narrow side of the ruler. And I'm going to lay it down so that the groove is, so that the piping is riding right in my groove. Do you see that? And I'm going to cut like that. Then all you have to do is pull on it. It stays right in the groove, and you cut again. Okay, it stays right in the groove. You come up here, you cut again. We could put the yarn in the bubble, couldn't we?
Just put it in the selections.
All righty. Okay. So now we will take this guy. Maybe not that guy. Maybe this guy. Okay. I'm going to close my rotary cutter. I'm going to cut off this cording. And the other night when Joni was showing how she turns corners, when she's doing the cording, she takes a slit and then she bends it. I don't do that with my quilts. I'll show you on my quilt. Okay. On a garment, I can see why you would do that. We don't do that on the quilt. It would be way too difficult. Okay, so now I'm going to take this is yep. I'm going to line this raw edge up that I just made when I cut with my piping hot binding ruler. I'm going to line that raw edge up there. And I'm going to line the raw edge of my binding at the same time. Okay. I'm going to close my cutter. Now again, probably would have helped if I had clipped this a little bit or pinned it, but we're just going to wing it here a little bit. I can feel my cording right through the binding. I can feel it. And I'm going to have it line up right with the groove in the foot again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my needle just slightly to the left so that I won't see the first line of stitching that I made when I made the piping. Does that make sense? I want to try to hide that so you don't see it. Okay. Like I said, if I were home, I'd probably be pinning or clipping one or the other. But you get the idea.
Amanda has the double piping foot. Is that the same?
I imagine you could use the double and just only use one groove. Use the groove farthest to the left. I would guess. I don't know. I haven't tried that. So I couldn't really say for sure. Maybe Joni could answer that. Is Joni outside? I think she's out in the other room.
Is.
Okay. And there you go.
Joni said yeah.
Yeah, I think you could. You just run it in just one of the grooves. Okay, there you go, Kate. There's your piping. Okay, can you see it?
That's so pretty.
And then this I would turn to the back and I would stitch it down by hand. I'll be honest with you, I would. Okay. Now I'm going to grab my Christmas quilt over there and bring it over and show you how I did the corners. I just do the corners. I sew right off. Actually, what I do is, to be perfectly honest with you, I would sew this piping piece down first. I was just saving time today. And I would sew it down first, over to here, and then snip it off. Then I would start the next one. Then once all the piping was on, then I'd put the binding on. I was just trying to save time. Okay? All right, let me show you. Let's see. Look at this one, because you can see better, I think, on this one. Okay. Yeah, I would sew the piping down first. I should have showed that. But you'll see here how I sewed this one right off the end of the quilt. And then this one went over top and that way. And then I had all the piping sewn on first, and then I put the binding on. Does that make sense? How do you join the piping? Oh, well, you don't join the piping. What you would do is you would join your fabrics at an angle, just like you do with your binding, and make your piping piece as long as you have to. And then, like I said, you would cut it off at each end of the quilt. Then you'd put the other piece on, the other piece, so that then you put the binding on last. I was just trying to speed things up a little bit, because this would be very difficult to turn the corner up here without this piping being sewn down intact first and then trimmed. And then what you would do is turn your binding corner just like we did on here, just like we did on any of the pieces. Okay? Yeah, this was cut, Linda, this was, not Linda, Carol, this was cut on the bias so that I could get that, barber pole look, candy cane look. All right. Any questions? So piping down first, cut it, overlap on the corners, and then you're binding. I was doing it all at once, which I probably shouldn't have because that's confusing. Okay, makes sense? Any other questions?
I have a question.
All
I don't know
right.
if this is a dumb one or not.
Oh,
What makes you choose to sew certain parts with a machine versus using like hand sewing?
well, the reason I sew my binding down on back by hand is because I enter them in quilt shows, and quilt judges, they turn their nose up a little bit at binding that's all done by machine. They like to see it sewn on by hand on the back.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I don't mind doing that at night, like in front of the TV and stuff like that. But like I said, for a baby quilt that's going to get washed over and over again, a table runner, placemats, it's nice to finish your binding by machine like Joni does with the binding foot, because then it holds up better.
Right.
Okay? Wonder if Gloria wants to come in to help sell stuff. I'm going to ask her. Let me ask her. Do you want to come in to help sell stuff or no?
What's that?
Do you want to come in to help sell stuff or no?
Sure.
Yeah, they want to see you. Any more questions?
Okay.
Okay.
Ruth Ann came and got me. So I want to see what. I should have been watching, but you know what I was doing? I was getting ready my pillow for the event, and I'm really excited about it. It's going to have a flag across it, and we're going to use the Americana. So hopefully I will be done designing it today. But you know, we're getting a severe thunderstorm. They're
I know.
north
We're supposed to get hail.
Tornadoes, hail. Yes. Yeah. All right. So what a tool. So the toolkit for the piping hot binding. Did you do that one yet?
No.
No.
I wish, because I had my old book. It's right over there.
Right over
the
here.
Rulers,
Okay.
The ruler's exactly the same. It's just that she's added a lot more fun stuff in the new
Are
book.
we able to get more of these?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Let me grab my
I could grab my computer and double check that, but all my suppliers carry this one. So I mean, it's this
was her original.
Yeah.
I've had this for years.
And now there's more in it.
Oh, she has a lot more tips. Yeah, now she's doing the Rick Rack and everything else.
Yeah.
2005.
2005.
And that one's 2018, I think.
Okay, all right. And it's really popular. It's just such a nice touch, isn't it? And Joni used it to do mini piping, so you could do it on a little girl's collar, on a dress, and but really, what's pretty is on the edge of the binding. I really think that's pretty.
I wanted to do this for years on my binding, but I thought, how do you know how wide to cut that piping after you make it? Well, here she come up with the perfect measurement.
Yes, I know. And this tool really makes it easy. So.
It's one of those things you go, wow, why didn't I think of that?
Yes, yeah. So, and then, okay, so the next item, you have to have the baby lock piping foot, the mini piping foot. And where
Well,
is
we
that?
don't have the mini piping foot today.
Oh,
but this was
did we sell them all the way? Yeah.
This is,
we have more coming in. They're going to be here tomorrow.
This is the left piping foot. That's what it's called.
Okay, is that the one you use?
That's the one I use.
You
yes.
do? I didn't know that.
Yes.
Because you like the little bit wider boarding.
Yes, this is
okay.
it.
Okay.
You can see the groove under it right there.
So the piping foot left. Okay. Okay. And you said you were getting this at Joann's. I'm going to find it.
I bet Hobby Lobby has it too.
Yeah.
And the one that I got at Joann's was a little softer. I liked it a little better. This came from a drapery supply house. It's a little stiffer.
Yeah, I'll get it. I'll make sure we get it.
It's 330 seconds. It's called 330 seconds.
I got to write that down because you told me that earlier today, and I forgot. Well, I'm still been designing.
But I think when you're going to all that work on the quilt, you want to be able to see that piping.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that Joni showed was cute.
Yeah.
But it's so tiny. But that's what she recommends. See, this is hers. This is Susan Cleveland's right here.
Yeah, and we do have that. We do have hers. So, okay, so the next item is the clear 1/4 inch, which is Ruth Ann's favorite. Where'd that go?
Over there. It's over there.
Oh, okay.
This is all my stuff over here. That's all the show over there.
Okay, so this is Ruth Ann's favorite. And I kind of, when I was using it, I started to favor this one. you know, because so it is clear. It doesn't have the guide, but you like it better because like so a lot of people feel like the guide gets in their way.
My thing is with the guide, I feel like I mash my fabric up against the
Yeah.
guide too much,
Mm-hmm.
and then you don't get your scant quarter-inch.
You know,
Because
you have
I'm-
more than a quarter inch.
Because I'm depending on that guide and I'm pushing the fabric up against it instead of just gliding against it.
Yeah.
Now
so then-
Lizzie loves the one with the guide.
yeah.
That's what she
okay.
uses all the time.
Yeah. That's
Mm-hmm.
her granddaughter who's working here. You should see her granddaughter's high school senior picture. It is so wonderful. We're going to have to show them.
Okay.
You know,
all right.
because Lizzie's senior picture is absolutely gorgeous. Yes. Okay. We could offer that for sale. 'Cause I think it's so pretty. You'd want to put it on your wall and say, "That's my granddaughter."
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yes. All right. Now, so the large, quick, easy.
I didn't show how to use that tool today for mitering borders.
we have to show that on Thursday night.
But it makes it easier if you don't want to try to follow that 45-degree angle on your ruler.
Mm-hmm. So this is
And
it.
I've not used it, so I didn't want to show it today because I figured I'd get all mixed up.
Yeah,
Try-
but it
because
does make doing
in a
the
hurry,
mitered
yes.
borders, the mitered borders.
And it's by the same people who do the mitered binding.
right. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now the next one is her favorite thread, the Aurifil.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah.
everybody's
And it's
favorite,
nice
isn't
full
it?
on here, by
It's
the
a-
way, so
yeah,
I have
you
to take it
you
home.
better take that home. Yes. So, but and the color that you like, what color does she?
Oh, I use all the beiges and all the grays. I have
Okay.
many of them, but I don't know what color we have on today.
we
Light sand, and that's
sand.
probably what this is.
Yeah, and I know we have it. I just filled our supply up of.
I
of
saw
our,
there was. I saw
all
there
the
was.
most basic. So there's.
There it is over there.
I
There's
always
light
get
sand
the
right there.
top colors from Aurifil, and so there's always like my favorite, which is Dove Gray. That's always
I've
in
even
there.
been using some colored ones. I have a dark green and I have a maroon that I used. Like if I'm piecing binding and my binding's maroon, if you use something like this, when you press it, sometimes you can see the threads in the seam.
It gets such perfect tension.
Oh.
You will fall in love with it if you get it.
And it fills the bobbin really full. What is it? Is it
Yeah.
50 weight?
Yes,
Yes.
50 weight.
Well, that's why the bobbins are filling so full then. Mm-hmm.
Okay, next one, the piping cording, and that's
This is Susan Cleveland's, and this is what
Yeah.
Joni used Thursday night with the navy blue piping and the white fabric.
yeah, and that was our roll. It's just it's on a little different roll.
Yeah, this is my
Yeah.
roll from a long time ago. Yep.
Yeah. So now her roll's
100
taller
yards,
and
yep.
thinner.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah. It lasts forever, obviously,
Yes,
because you
yes.
still have yours.
Well,
from
like I
years
said,
ago.
I kind of go to the fatter one just because I want it to show better.
Yeah, now the next one is the Gypsy Quilter No Slip Ruler. What size is that?
No, it's these
Oh,
to put on your ruler.
those.
I
if
brought
you-
these from home. I love them.
Okay.
Where are they? There they
So
are.
they're like little hearts. Okay, they're little hearts, and they prevent you put them on the back of your ruler.
Look, they're stuck to the bag. That's how sticky they are. And and I have them on the back of this 45-degree ruler. I don't know if you
Okay.
can see it or
Because
not,
some
Kate.
of the 45, some of this
See them?
don't come
Can you
with
see them?
any stickiness.
Oh no, this is slippery.
Mm-hmm.
This is the ruler I borrowed from Carol, and I put them on.
Okay. So here it is, the Gypsy Quilter No Slip Grip Hearts. And how many did you put on that ruler? About 5, it looks, right?
At least 4.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4. Okay, so
And
that's a good gadget to
it's,
have.
It's really good to have.
Okay, and then the next one is the friction highlighter. So there's the highlighters, this set of highlighters.
These are the colors I brought today.
Yeah. So this one, I prefer the highlighters because it goes on easier.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it
See,
does.
I don't have the highlighter color.
You better get some
but
highlighters.
but I like the sharp point. I don't like the felt point.
Yeah,
I like that's the
okay.
sharp point.
Now, do we have, so the next one, so this is a felt tip, okay, and the next one.
No, this isn't
is,
the felt tip, is it?
Yeah, that one is. Mhm.
Chisel tip. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought that
Yeah.
meant sharp tip. Okay.
But the next one is our set of 3. So you'll get, with that one, you get 3, and I think it's a black and a blue and a red. Does that look right?
And it's pointed.
Yeah,
Like this.
and just remember, ours, we get the clicker. So people go, how do you get the point working, right? Didn't you do that when you first opened it? It's like, how does this thing work? I can't get the point out. And so it's not this one, okay? It is this one, and you go with this little thing with it. You hang on your pocket, and you push on that, and that's
There
what
you
gets
go.
the point out, okay? This is a little thicker than this one.
Really?
And so that's why I like the clicker. It's
Oh,
just,
okay.
this is like 0.5, this is 0.7. It's just a hair
I'll be darned.
thicker.
I never knew that.
Yeah, so I like the clicker ones better. So the package that you get
This
will
is
get
mine
you'll get
also.
3 of the
Okay, so
clicker.
that's only 0.5 also.
Yeah,
Okay.
you got the fine point.
I
So
do.
these go on easier.
Mhm.
So
Cool.
okay, then our favorite rotary cutter is next. So okay, and our favorite rotary cutter, just I don't know,
It does
it's
feel good.
it feels good in my hand. When I
Mhm.
try any other one, it just doesn't feel good in my hand. And then the other thing is, it is so easy to change the blade. You just go like that, it falls off. You take your old one, get your new one, put it on, and then go like that. And I like hang it off the edge of the table to get it right at the right spot, and you click it. That is so easy.
And I grabbed a 28 today because I like a 28. Look what I
Mhm.
grabbed. The old school.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have this one at home. I didn't grab
Yeah.
that one. I have the old school.
All right, so here is the new one, and this one also has the easy to change blade.
Yes.
So that one you need an engineering degree.
Absolutely. You have to line them all up.
Yes. And I
put it
always
back
get that
together.
washer on wrong.
Wrong.
It never goes on right.
Exactly.
So these are just so much easier.
I just have so many at home from years back.
Now, we just got in today the 45 millimeter. We
Yes,
were out of these.
Sarah ran them
yeah,
over.
Yeah, that we
Because
just
I
they
was
just
searching
arrived.
for them. Yeah.
Our deal on these is so good. These are the gold titanium coated blades, and so they last longer. They cut, they're sharper, and that price that you see in the bubble is for 10 of them. 24, so $2.50 a piece.
That's
where
dirt
Olfa
cheap.
blades are $7.50 a piece.
Oh, I betcha.
Honestly, they
I bet
are.
they are.
$7.50 a piece. So yeah, so here you get 10 of them for $24.95. Okay,
Did you ever run over a pin with your?
Oh yeah.
One day I
Yeah.
went through all the trouble of changing one of these.
Yes.
I went like this. First cut. Boom, boom. There was a pin underneath. I just
Oh,
wanted
I give
to cry.
up. I'm going to
Exact-
watch TV.
Exactly. I just
Yes.
wanted to cry.
Yes. So now the next one is this 28 millimeter blade. That is 10 blades in the package. It's also the titanium coated, so they are the gold blades. And Natalia is back, so our
Yes.
fabric orders are going to get cut
Yep.
faster.
I was excited to see her today.
Sounded off with an emergency alert. The National Weather Service.
Uh-oh.
Severe thunderstorm warning in effect for this area until 5.
So your phone
Until 5:30. Oh, I got to go home and get my car in the garage before the hail hits it.
Oh no! I think it's Beaver. Beaver. They said a tornado's touchdown, and that's like what 20 miles above.
Today a tornado.
Yeah, just
Oh.
a little bit ago. Yeah, but it went right back up. They said it would touch down, so they wanted us to watch. But that was 20 miles north of us, so it's not going to come down here. No
I hope
way.
not.
No, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. Yes. Okay, so next one is the Quilter Select Non-Slip Ruler. Which one do you like, Ruth Ann?
I like the 6.5.
I know.
I know
I
you
like
don't.
the 6.
I know you don't.
I get all mixed up with the 6.5, and I just
So many of my quilt borders are 6.5.
yeah.
And I'm so used to cutting 3.5. I know to lay it down with the half size.
yeah.
So that's why I recommended the 6.5. I know you and Steve don't like them.
agree with you, definitely.
Mhm.
So, but these are the best rulers. They do cost more, but you put it on your fabric, and the rulers, they don't move.
No,
They're
they do not.
wonderful.
And if you do happen to slide, your fabric slides right with it, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah, it'll carry your fabric.
Right.
And so how many pieces of fabric did you ruin back when there was no stickiness?
I know.
A ton,
I
right?
know,
Because
absolutely.
it slid and you were cutting and oh no.
Absolutely.
You got to recut it. You've wasted the fabric. You've wasted
And your
the fabric.
time.
Yeah, and your time. And then you feel like I don't want to sew anymore.
Exactly. Or at least I don't want to cut anymore.
I don't want to cut anymore. No. All right. So what's the next one we have? Oh, the 3x12. This is I love this size.
I do too. I use that an awful lot.
But I bet you use the 2.5. So we'll get your size in next time.
Oh no, I didn't even know there was a 2.5.
I think there is.
Mm-hmm.
I am.
You know what else I
positive.
want in Quilter Select? I want a 6.5-inch square.
Yeah,
I
think
get
we
that.
have those.
I need to get one. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And okay, so the next one is the Karen K. Buckley scissors. This is her most
There's a new
popular
one over
pair.
there. Yep.
New one right here, and it comes with a guard.
And I brought these with me today because I like the way I can nip that little V when I'm doing the borders.
Yeah,
Marking the
they're
borders.
sharp right up to the point.
Yep.
And they're serrated, so they hold on to your fabric.
Mhm.
And I like that the handles, they're soft. So
Well,
they
I
don't
like
dig
that they have
into
big
your-
holes because I have huge thumbs, believe it or not. When I go bowling, I have to get a man's ball for my thumbs to fit in.
Really?
And it's so heavy
I'm
I
gonna
can't
need
bowl
a
with them.
man's. I
Look how
couldn't
I
do
have-
it out with.
I have some scissors. You do this and you have to pull it off my thumb when I'm done.
Yes, and then I got a groove on.
Yes.
You won't get that with these.
No, there's
these.
good
will-
Lord,
you
there's
will
tons of
love these.
tons of room. I love them.
You,
Love them
whenever
to
you
death.
need to snip something really sharp.
Do you remember the old gingers? You'd cut and your fabric would squirt out as you
Yes.
were cutting.
Yep, because it would just slide right off.
Mhm.
What were they thinking? They were trying to torture us.
Mhm.
Now the next one after the scissors is Gloria Horn Sewing Studio ruler. Do we have any of those?
I have one.
Yeah, okay, so hopefully
That's where I marked my little 1/4 inch on the corners for
This-
doing a mitered corner.
it has our name on it. So it's
But it's
limited
handy.
edition.
It's handy because it's little. Who wants to take this big thing and try to mark in a 1/4 inch on your?
And
on
it's
your
nice to have
border?
right in front of your machine.
Yep.
And someday this is going to go up in value.
Yeah.
It is.
It'll be a collector's item.
It is. It's going to be a collector's item for sure. You buy 20 of these, and someday you'll be able to sell them on eBay, and you'll make like thousands of
Oh
dollars.
Lord, hail and 80-mile-an-hour winds expected. Be careful, Ruth
Oh,
Ann.
jeez. Okay.
God, I have Lizzie in the car with me. We'll both be screaming
like
the witch, like the witch.
Yeah,
in
we
Wizard of
shouldn't
Oz.
joke. We shouldn't joke.
This is
Yes.
yours, not mine.
Yes. Okay. And the Panasonic iron.
Oh,
We love the Panasonic iron. This one, we haven't
Look at
been
that.
showing. I know. It like really steams.
I have to get this one.
I know.
I love mine.
I
And
know.
it turns off every 10 minutes.
Right, 8 minutes is
Oh,
yours.
oh.
This is 30. No, 2 hours.
2 hours, yeah.
2 hours.
We used this at the event last fall.
Yeah, and you like
was
that.
wonderful,
Yeah.
yes.
We will be using those this year too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
In fact, I'm going to turn it off right now.
I have to go get an Easy Pass. I don't know. My Easy Pass was for my old car, and you have to go get a new one when you get a new car.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
you just had to tell me your new
Yeah,
license
maybe you
plate
do.
number.
But now I can't find my old Easy
Oh, okay.
Pass. So anyhow, and I think that's it. Is that it for the day?
Did we show this ruler?
Oh, wait. No, we did not. We skipped right over that.
And what did you do with that ruler?
Well,
I should have watched.
I used it.
Are you running out the door, Jamie? No.
Maybe, but it didn't.
It doesn't look bad out there.
We used a 45-degree ruler to mark the lines so you know where to stop sewing for your binding.
Oh,
But
okay.
the reason I like this ruler is this is the one that I had to put a piece of tape on to be right for Glorious Garden.
Yeah.
This ruler is the exact size for Glorious Garden. Look.
So the Creative Grids one is better.
It's exact size for Glorious Garden. So you
Where's
can,
Carol?
so,
Is she watching us today?
Yeah,
I think
she was.
She was?
Mhm.
Okay.
So if you're going to do the Glorious Garden, this would be the one to get.
Yeah. So here, this is it. Creative Grids, non-slip,
And then you'll
45
have it for
degree.
marking your corners and for your Glorious Garden.
Yeah. I can't wait till you guys start Crimson Christmas.
Yeah, and when
I
are
know
we,
a bunch of people
are all the
were
fabrics in yet for Glorious Garden?
Well, they were in, and they made as many kits as they could, and then they ran out of a couple fabrics.
Okay,
so
'cause we have to
I think
teach that.
Yeah. So I'm buying it on the black market. So whenever we run out of certain fabrics, I go and I buy it at full price.
And I still don't
but
have all the
even at
crimson.
that, they're hard to get.
And I still
think
don't have
everybody's.
all the Crimson Christmas because everybody ordered it, so Glory wanted you guys to be happy, and she sent out all the fabric, and I'm
Yeah.
still missing one piece of
Right.
it.
Yeah. So I did order it. So hopefully and they shipped it out. I ordered it late last night, and I did see that one fabric did ship today. So they're
Okay.
shipping them pretty fast.
All
So,
right.
but I have a feeling it is so awesome that 50 more people are going to want it.
Once
don't you
they
think?
see it, yeah.
Yeah. So I think we'll wait a little bit to start the classes until more fabric
it is
comes
only
in.
April.
Yeah, it is. I know, but it's like the best quilt I ever
But-
saw.
Yeah, but once we're over the event,
Yeah.
then we can start.
Then
in
we can
June or
start
July.
that. Yeah. We're going to start in-person classes in here.
It'll be fun.
Yeah,
I
I
always,
think
I
I'm
always
really
like teaching
excited.
in person.
Yeah. All right. I think we did it,
Is
right?
that it?
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I'm going to make Ruth Ann run and get Lizzie.
Okay.
I'm going to
All
film it while she's running.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah. And get in your car and head home.
All righty.
I think south of Pittsburgh is going to do better than
Well,
way
and I'm
north
heading
of
and I'm
Pittsburgh.
heading south.
Tornado warning right now.
Yeah.
Where I live.
Oh,
Really?
no. You're south.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, she's further south than I am.
Yeah.
Okay. These are all yours.
Okay. All right. I think you should just run out the